Hey guys, Joe Massey here with Castle and Cooke Mortgage. I've got Lon Welsh with Your Castle Real Estate on the call with me today. And Lon, we're seeing a lot of questions about what's happening in the market, where are things going. Something that you and the folks at Your Castle have tracked for years, which I've always admired, is the showings per active listing on a monthly basis. So we've got that slide pulled up here. Can you tell us what this is and how can we use this to see where we're going?
It's a little bit of a busy chart, but it's a very useful tool for forecasting what's going to happen next, as well as explaining what has happened in the past. So we talked to a lot of sellers who are afraid that due to the high interest rates, there's no buyers out there to take a look at their house, and it would be a waste of their time to prepare their house for listing. And that turns out actually not to be true at all. So let me show you what's going on here. Each of these lines show you the number of showings in a given month per year for each individual listing out in the market. So let's take a look at the really dark red line. And if you look in the upper left, you can see it's way up in the stratosphere. That's 2022. So the year started off very strong because the mortgage rates were still very low at that point in time, and there was an extreme shortage of inventory. So the small number of homes that we had got a lot of traffic and multiple offers, and oftentimes the homes themselves were above asking price. And you can see that within 3 or 4 months after that, that party was over. And that coincides with when the mortgage rates started going up in March of 22. And by May of 22, rates had gone up enough that it took a lot of air out of the balloon. And you can see then that 2022 was then clustered with all the prior years with a typical amount of showing traffic, not double the amount of showing traffic. So if you take a look at the lighter red line, again in the upper left, very high showing traffic in 2021. So the reason for that was in a lot of 2020, during the most fearsome part of COVID, in many markets, it was not allowed to show homes because of COVID concerns. And then even after we were re-allowed to show homes, many buyers just stayed at home because they're still kind of in the shock of COVID. So during 2020, we didn't sell many homes. By 2021, we started to have a vaccine. People started to feel better. The mortgage rates have been cut dramatically to stimulate demand. And then we had this gigantic surge of interest. And you can see that reflected in the high number of showings per active listing in the upper left. And then actually throughout the entire year for 2021. So we refer to these 2 years, 2021 and 22, as the unicorn years, where you had this unbelievably unusual set of factors of demand being artificially suppressed in 2020 due to COVID concerns, a relief of the concerns about COVID. At the same time, we're going to give money away almost for free to borrow. And people responded by, yes, I'm going to go out and buy a house. And we had this extraordinary bubble of interest. So when you look at the showing traffic and the buyer activity today, it's not appropriate to look at the unicorn years. You want to look at what is it like without the impacts of COVID. And that would be some of the other lines like the blue dash line, the gray dash line for 2018, and the solid green line for 2019. Those are the normal years before COVID, and you can see that they're all very tightly clustered. There's a little more showing traffic in the spring when buyers tend to be more active, and a little less showing traffic in the rest of the year when buyers are not quite as active. And that is traditionally what the market should function as, a normally functioning market. So then I just want to look at the pink line, which is 2023. And you can see that our showing traffic per listing this year is right on track with the pre-COVID years that we had in the past. This chart doesn't show you September, October, November. I do have the data. I can tell you that they came in just a hair below the green line. So for the sellers out there in the market, this is a good time to list a home because the number of buyers out there relative to the amount of inventory is exactly in balance relative to what we historically saw before COVID. It's a very good time to be listing a home right now.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And I've had a lot of people ask me this year, Joe, when do you think the market's going to get back to normal? Well, this chart shows that it is normal. Yeah, 2020, 21, 22, those were the abnormal years, right? You compare 17 to 19 and look at 2023. These are the normal years right here in this band. And we're pretty normal. Doesn't feel normal because we had a couple of abnormal years. When you're coming out of something abnormal, going back to normal, it feels strange, but we're back to a normal market, meaning buyers can negotiate for seller concessions. You can get an appraisal. You can negotiate on inspection items. Yeah, you might have to list your home for 30, 60, maybe even 90 days, but that's the way real estate traditionally worked for decades. But we forgot because we had a couple of really, really crazy years. So I think we're getting back to normal, and this chart really illustrates that. Thanks so much for sharing this with us, Lon. This is great intel.
Of course. Thank you.
If you guys have questions, put a comment down below, reach out to Lon, reach out to myself. We would always be happy to chat.